Welcome to today's class for RDS hands-on demo. Today we will learn how to set up an RDS instance from the ground up. For setting up an RDS instance, it is ideal to start with a custom VPC which is spreading across the multiple availability zones and a separate subnet for the RDS itself. You can call it an RDS subnet, database subnet or private subnet. In my case, I'm calling it them as a private subnets. And that is the first important prerequisite. And the next prerequisite is creating a parameterized group, or in other words a custom parameter group instead of using the default ones. So we can customize the parameters before we go ahead even start the database. So since my VPC is already set in my VPC dashboard, I'm going to start with the parameter groups. So I've already logged into my AWS account, and this is the RDS dashboard. On the left hand side you will be the multiple options, and click on parameter groups, and by default there will be a parameter group for defaults for MariaDB. If you want a custom one, go ahead and click on the create parameter group, and it will ask you what group family you want. So I'm going to use a MySQL here, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose MySQL 5.7, and I'm going to say this is a Valaxy RDS demo custom parameter group. I'm just going to copy this for description, and that is all is there for creating the parameter groups. So now we have created our parameter group and it is ready for customization. What happens is Amazon takes a copy of all the parameters that we can customize as end users and puts it into a different tagging. That's all it is. If we want to modify it, go ahead and click on this search icon. It will open all the parameter values that is available for us. So let us say I want to change the time zone parameter. So let us go ahead and search for time zone. You can see here that whether the default time zone is set or not. It says that it is no, and if you want to edit that one, you can click on edit parameters. Let us go ahead and enable this. Wait a second, that is not the thing that I wanted. There will be a one for Asia Pacific and those kind of things. That is the most easiest thing to modify without changing too many things or impacting too many things. Okay, there we go. This is the one I was talking about. There is a time zone, and it is asking me what is the default values, what I want. I am going to start this database in Asia, and more specifically in India. So I'm going to choose the time zone as Asia/Calcutta. So this way, all the transactions that is recorded in my database will have a time zone of India timings. So if you are going to go ahead and start it somewhere else, you go ahead and change that. So click on save changes. That's it. We have changed our parameters. If you want to change any of those parameters, if there is any performance tuning or a kernel tuning or anything, you go to the parameter group. Again, if you click on that, it will show you the list of all the values and currently set values. Like here, for example, these are the allowed values that you see at the top here, and then whether it is modifiable or not, and what is the current setting. All those parameters are listed here. So go ahead and choose the ones that you want to customize here. So moving to subnet groups. So we have set our parameter groups, we have changed our time zones, we are going to set our network layer. We are going to inform RDS that these are the subnets that RDS can be created. So go ahead and click on create DB subnet group, and I'm just going to say custom DB subnets here. Copy that and paste it in the description as well. And then it is asking me which VPC I need to choose. Remember the custom VPC we just now created. I'm going to choose that one, and it gives me an option to add all the subnets. No, that is not what we want. We want to only add the specific private subnets we created. So in one, I'm going to choose which availability zone first, 1A, and it is listing me only the subnet names. Since I don't remember what is the public subnet here, I'm just going to head over to my VPC dashboard here, which I've already kept it open. Click on subnets, and I'm just going to search for RDS here, so it is easy to see. In fact, what I can do is RDS demo AZ1. In fact, I can do it like this as well. Search for public. So it will easily give me the one. So my subnet should be D7D. So let me go to the RDS dashboard, choose the one which says D7D. So this is the one, the last one. So click on add. Likewise, I need to do it for availability zone B as well. So click on B and let me just go ahead and search it in my VPC dashboard to see which one it is. It is F9B. Let us go ahead and choose F9B here. F9B is here. Click on add. So both my subnets are added here and you can see the values are here. So this is the private subnets that I have created for my database to be residing on, and I have created security rules also for this only to access on port 3306. So let's move forward and go ahead and click on create. So just if you are in this dashboard and the data is not refreshed quickly, hit the refresh button, it should appear here. And click on the same way, click on the search icon, you should be able to modify it or change your subnets anytime. If you want to add tags, additional tags, you can go ahead and add them as well for easier understanding what these subnets are. Okay, so now our basic prerequisites are that most importantly our subnet group and our parameter groups both are set. So next step is to go ahead and start our instance itself. For that, go ahead and click on instances at the top, and here you will have launch instances at the beginning. So click on that, and for our experiments we can very well start with the free tier only. You have all these database engines available for RDS as we saw in the previous video. It is MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, SQL Server. All these options are available. We are going to start with MySQL here, and we are going to start with the MySQL Community Edition itself. That is more than enough for us. And if you want to be sure that if you are going to practice it as a demo or set up a small database without any issues, so go ahead and choose this. This way your options are restricted. This is a free tier only, so you can see automatically my Amazon Aurora is automatically disabled. The only difference between MySQL and Amazon Aurora is a AWS customized database which is fully compatible with MySQL. It has a performance of better 5 times. You can see here it has 5 times throughput of MySQL, and here you can see the database supported is 6 terabytes, whereas when it comes to Aurora it's 64 terabytes. The simple thing that you need to remember is Aurora is a better performing engine when it comes to MySQL. So for our demo purpose we are going to use MySQL. Click on that, and it is going to ask some more details about what is my database engine, what are the parameters that I need. So here DB engine is 5.7 is there. I'm going to choose 5.7. If you remember, the parameter group that I chose is for 5.7. So I'm going to ensure I'm choosing the same version here as well. 5.7. Interesting. It is saying my DB instance is going to cost me so many dollars. Let me see what happens if I choose 5.7. Interesting, isn't it? So anyway, we have, if you remember, we have chosen this option which says that only options that are available or eligible for free tier is selected. So I'm going to leave with 5.7 because that is the version of parameters that I chose with, and it is DB2 T2 micro. I'm not changing it. And you remember, if you're choosing a free tier option, your multi-AC will not be enabled. Only if you uncheck this option, your free tier will be enabled, as I've shown here just now. So for demo purpose, you don't have to start a multi-AC deployment. It's ordinary deployment should be fair enough without any issues. We can test the database, read, write, update queries. So you can leave all of those parameters of storage size and everything as defaults. And DB identifier, what is my identifier? I'm going to write something that we copied earlier. So this is my DB identifier. This is how I'm going to identify my database. So I'm just going to call it custom database 1, and to easier access I'm just going to say DB user. This is a demo database, so password is going to be very simple, so we can connect to it. Click on next step. And now is the interesting question where you want to create your VPC is coming in. So I'm going to choose my custom VPC that we just now created. So, and it is by default, it is picking up the RDS subnet group because we already set it up previously as a subnet group. So by default, it goes and selects it. So we don't have to do much things here, and it is saying that whether it is publicly accessible or not. And I'm saying it is public. If I create a publicly accessible, I will get a public routable IP address so that I can connect to this database from the internet itself. Otherwise, I need to connect to it from my VPC only. So for now, let us keep it as no, more secure that way. And availability zone, I'm just going to put my primary database into 1A availability zone. And security group, where is the private? Here is the private security group. Select that. And what is the database name? Is going to be database name is going to be, let us call it students. I'm just going to remove this hyphen. Sometimes I find that creating issues. And then port number is 3306. Let us keep it as it is because our security group is designed for that. And parameter group, you can see here I have the option to choose the parameter group. I'm going to select the one that I customized. And option groups, we have not any customized it, so leave it as it is as default. And do you want the tags that we have created to copy to Snapshot? Why not? We know that what tags are, what is this database is about, so we can copy it. And we are not enabling IAM authentication as of now, so keep it as no. And this is the most important administrative part of it that we spoke about in the previous video. How often the backup has to be taken and backup has to be retained for how many days. So you can have it 7 days, 10 days, and all the way up to 35 days. So it is completely customizable between this range. So leave it as 7 days. And when you want a backup window, if you want it to happen at only night time, then you can go ahead and choose a select window and choose a particular time. If not, you just leave it as no preference, and Amazon will find the best time to take the backups. So enable enhanced monitoring, all these things you can just leave it as default. Then we can come back and see how each and everything is important here. When you do detailed monitoring, you will collect sub-second metrics. So how granular you want your metrics to be every 1 second, every 5 seconds, and all the way up to 60 seconds. That is 1 minute recording. So, and this is the upgrade part when your database needs to be upgraded and what is the maintenance window for your upgrades. So you can choose these options and customize it, and if you choose no, Amazon will not upgrade your database unless you specifically come back and change this option to yes. So click on launch instance. So it immediately comes back with this window or page saying that your DB instance is being created, a green color nice window. So if you go ahead and click on your view DB instance, you can see here it is status is getting created. It takes about a few minutes for the database to get created and it comes online. So meanwhile, we'll just go ahead and see what are these two other tabs are. If you click on this, it will show you the details about your database. All the values that we have chosen so far will appear here. The ARN ID of our database, the database engine, what is the database name we created. Of course, the username password will not be shown here. That is, the password will not be shown here, only the username. And there is the instance types, and these are all the operation metrics, whether it is monitored, whether encryption is there, high availability is there, and whether a maintenance window is created or not. So this is about the metrics. If you click on logs, it will show you what whenever there is some transactions happening or some failed transactions or insert transactions, you can come here and see the logs of your database. As of now, there's nothing happening in our database. It is getting built, so there is no logs here. So when we do some update, create, delete records, we should be able to see some records here. For now, nothing will come here. And this is what it is. We don't have anything else. Let us go back to our database instance. This is a cancel button, or go back here. No. Let me just click on this one. So finally, it is replication status. This is the third tab that we are talking about, replication status. And you can see here, as of now, there are no read replicas that has been configured on our database. In case we want to create a replica, we need to select our instances, go to instance actions, and this option will come enabled once you have the database is online, you should be, or we should be able to create a read replica for it, and we will see the replicas here, how many replicas we have created. All that tree will be shown here, and this is the metrics as a chart based view. As of now, it is coming online, and we will wait for a minute to come online. Meanwhile, what I will do is I'll go ahead to my public subnet and create a web server and install some MySQL clients so that we can talk to this database. You can see here it is changing from backup happening to available status immediately. So our database is almost ready, and we should be able to get connected and start working with our database right away. So let us go ahead and see whether our public instance, which is going to act as a database client, is ready. Once it is ready, we will connect from our public instance to our database and run some queries against our database. So let's quickly go over and check that. So here, as you can see, my public instance is ready with a public IP address. So we should be able to SSH to this server and install some packages. We could have done it from a boot level itself, but anyway, we will connect to that instance now and install the necessary packages so that we can work from this as a RDS client. I'm just going to rename this as RDS client so we can focus it clearly. Okay, sudo su, so m-y install. I'm just going to check whether my command is right, or that is MySQL client or MariaDB client. Let me just go over to my notes here. You can see, okay, I'm install MariaDB. That helps. That should pick up the server as well as the client also. Let's go ahead and paste it there. So we need our instance ID now, that is the RDS instance ID, so that we can connect to our database from our client. So this is the syntax for that. Let us go to our RDS dashboard and get the instance endpoint, the RDS endpoint, that is how it is called. So you can see here, when you just click on that, it will, the twisty is not opening, means just click on the twisty so that it will open the details. And if you open the details, the first thing that you see at the top is the RDS endpoint. Here you see here, this is the endpoint. I'm just going to copy up to the .com and put it into my notepad so that we can create the command, full command here. And my username is db user, so I'm just going to change it for db user and then -p. We can type the password on the prompt. So copy this command, go to our client. It is refreshing, paste it. I'm just going to minimize this also, increase the font size a little bit, and then press enter, and it is asking for the password directly. So I'm just going to type. You can see here, so far we have set up our DB parameter group, subnet group, set up our DB instance, and set up our DB client, and we are now able to connect it. And if you remember, my database instance is in a different subnet and my EC2 client is in a different subnet, that is public subnet and private subnet, and only my public subnet can connect to my private subnet through the security group rules, and I'm able to connect to that. And if I do something like show databases, it will show the database that we created. If you remember, while setting up the server, we created a database called Valaxy students. So I'm going to say use this database now. Not this. I need to say use Valaxy students, and it will say database has changed. So that is how you change to that particular database, and then you can create the tables there or insert records there. So I'm basically going to do a couple of insert records based on the commands that you hear. That is very easy to follow this article, and if you're not familiar with the databases, I've written it. For people who are already familiar with the databases, this might look very, very basic. You can skip ahead and go ahead and try to insert your tables and take a snapshot. So for people who are not familiar with it, let us go ahead and do some of these actions. So if you want to know how many active connections are there, how many connections are right now available threads, you can run these commands and check it out. But the first thing is, after your database is created, the next thing that you need to do is you need to have tables underneath it. So we created a Valaxy students database. So of course, so we are going to go ahead and create a table which is called as students, and this table will take in three parameters, that is student ID and name and the city of the student. So this is a syntax. I'm just going to blindly copy paste it because this is written correctly, and I'm going to copy paste into my terminal now. Before this, if I can do, okay, what I wanted to do is, one second, db use Valaxy students, and if I do show tables right now, you can see here, if I can see my screen, as of now there are no tables right now. So what we are going to do now is we are going to copy paste this command and see what happens, whether our table is getting created. So you can see here it is successfully created our tables. If I put an up arrow and use the same command show tables, you can see here my tables has been created. So now when my tables is created, the next step is to insert some student records into the tables. So I have already pre-written some insert records. You can see here there are 5 entries that I am making and different values for those 5 entries. You can go ahead and modify it and customize it whatever you want. So I'm just going to copy this 4 of them first and paste it into my, before that I can show one more thing also. Show star from students. In other words, I'm just saying pick all the values from the student table and show me on the screen. And okay, it is not show, it is select. I'm sorry about that. Select star from students. It is saying empty records. That is, as of now, there are no records in my tables. So let us go ahead and insert some records. So let me flush my screen. So if I run the select star from students again, you can see here the 4 records that we inserted just now appearing on the screen now. So these are the 4 records that we just created, and this is all available. So what I'm showing you is there is something called a CRUD operation in database: create, retrieve, update, and delete. So that is what I'm just showing you here. So we created records, we have retrieved those records. Let us go ahead and update and record. Say for example, we want to change one user's name or a field or something like that. So that is what next we can do it. So that is also I have made those commands here. So you can see here retrieve records, that is select star from tables, and delete is here. Instead of deleting, we can go ahead and update an item if it is possible here. So I have not written that anyway. Leave that. It is easy to delete. So what we'll instead do is we'll go ahead and create a snapshot first, because I want to show you snapshots are point in time databases. Yep. So we have updated 4 records, and then I'm going to create a snapshot now. For creating a snapshot, you go to our database dashboard and then click on instances and select our instance and click on take a snapshot. And it is asking me what is the name of the snapshot. I'm going to say snapshot with 4 student records and click on take snapshot. So just waiting for the screen to refresh, and you can see here the new snapshot is, this is the name that we created for our new snapshot, and the status of that our new snapshot is creating. So it is going to take a while before the snapshot is completed, and it will automatically refresh and update the progress also here, because it is going to take a copy of a 5 GB database. Although the space is going to be used is very small, it is going to find out what is changed and then create a snapshot of that. Yes, Mr. Hanu, because this is a manual snapshot, not an automated incremental snapshot. And once we create the first time, it is a full, and after that, it is going to have an incremental snapshots on top of that. So where do you find it? It is manual or automated. You can see here there is a type field that is on the right hand side, and you can see here the type is manual for the one that we have just now created. I'm going to hit on refresh to see what is happening, and it is still happening. So let us give it a minute and take a minute pause for reflecting on what we have done so far. So as you can see here on the background, my snapshot is completed. Let us go ahead and make one more entry into the database. Let us copy paste the final student record. If you remember, there were 5 student records. We updated only 4 of them. So we are going to insert a Martian into our records. We don't like new humans, so we are going to add a Martian into our record, and we updated. Now if you do a show tables, you will be able to see there is a 5th student record who is from Mars, and we have added it into the table now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another database from our snapshot, and then try to connect to it and see whether our Martian is still there in our new database. So head over to my console and select my snapshot that we have here, and then click on restore snapshot. I'm going to restore it to a same database now, not creating a new database. I'm going to restore it now. So click on restore. It is asking me the default values, where I want to do it, and whether it is a multi-zone deployment. I'm going to say no. And I don't remember my database identifier. I gave something like a Valaxy DB. I'm going to go ahead and get it from my previous window. Instances, go to instances, select our instance here, click on identifier. Where is my DB identifier here? Quickly identifier, not able to find it. If I'm not wrong, that is the one. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and check whether my VPCs are good. Public accessible, no. Default, copy all the snapshots, and minor version, everything default. Restore DB instance. Okay, it is giving me an error, and click on go ahead, and it wouldn't allow me to do it on the existing instance itself. It wants me to restore it on a separate instance only. Let me just go ahead and do that as well. Multi-AC. So once again, it's going to take 5-10 minutes for the DB cycling process to come up, and then the snapshots to be created. Meanwhile, let us go to the primary instance, the one that we earlier created, and see whether the logging has happened, any logs have appeared on our primary instance. It goes here, and if I go to logs, if you can see here on my screen, there are all types of logs here: when the DB was created, when the DB was shut down, when the backup was taken, and when the backup was finished, all those kind of events. And there are some errors related to errors also. I mean, there are some logs related to errors as well. So if I want to view on that, click on view, it will take me to a console where it says what is the error message and all the detailed messages from my database also. So in case if you have some issues, if you want to troubleshoot your database, so this is how you come and find out what is the log, and then you try to come and identify what is the information that is presented in the log and troubleshoot it. So that is for troubleshooting purposes. This is the place you look at, because you remember in RDS you cannot connect to the database as an administrator level or a root level and try to do some troubleshooting. This is the only way you can find out what is went wrong and then try to understand it. So meanwhile, there was some graphs about what is the number of connections and all those things. Let us go ahead and check that. If I click on the database monitoring metrics, you can see here there is a small amount of IO that is happening. The read IO is higher than my write IO, because we are not writing much data into a database. We are creating snapshots, we are doing insert records and then reading it very slightly. So the main spike is because of the snapshot that is getting created. So apart from that, there is not much activity happening, and you can see here my CPU is hardly went up all the way to 7 or 15, something like that. So we are not doing much, so we don't see much of the spikes here. So that is how you do it, and meanwhile our snapshots are getting created, so just give it a while. Now as you can see here, my snapshot database is also ready for action. It is available status, so we should be able to go ahead and connect to this endpoint and start modifying or accessing these records. So I'm just going to connect this endpoint so that we can put it into our syntax and connect to it. Come on, it's connected, copied everything. So I'm just going to put it here. So and say MySQL -host is this host, and then say this is my port number 3306, and the username is going to be the same, and I'm going to connect to it again from a different terminal. I'm just going to duplicate this window, my terminal window. So let us jump into root for running some privileged commands with MySQL. Okay, and then I need to put a -p for password. So let us add that also. Did it work? Did it change the password? Not sure. I'm not sure why it is not connecting. Just give me one moment. I'm just going to check if for any reason I changed the username anywhere. I'm going to check the security group of this instance also. That is the next thing. If we have not put it in the right security group, that is going to be a problem. I'm just going to see where are the security groups, see details. You can see here it is on the default security group. Whether you are able to see my screen, I am in the details section, and I am in the default security group, so that is not going to work. I'm going to find out a way to modify the security group now. If I click on this, it is not going to help. Somewhere modify is there. Yep, here you go. There is a modify section for my database. Most of the things, guys, if you are not setting up the database right in the first time, and if you believe that you have set up right everything and you're not able to connect, it is almost always the security group that is the problem. So first check out the security group and then try to fix other things later. Ensure, in other words, ensure that security group is properly set, and then try to look at issues elsewhere at the network level. So I've changed my security group. It's good that we did this. I did this error, so we can see how to modify the security group while running itself. As you can see in my screen, the security group is getting updated. It is removing one security group and adding another security group dynamically, and you can see the modifying tag also is applied here. So just give it a while so that it both refreshes and gets updated very soon. So there you go, it has gotten updated and we are in the private security group now, and it should work to connect to the database now. Let me just go ahead and put an up arrow there. So there we go, we have got connected to our database now. If I put a show databases and press enter, we will see our tables are there. So use our table Valaxy students, and to select star from students, I think it is capital S. You can see here there are only 4 records that are happened here, because if you remember, we took a snapshot after 4 records and we inserted some 5th record, modified the 5th record, but none of those has carried forward to our snapshots. So you should remember that snapshots are always point in time data, so you cannot have data that is created after your snapshot has been made. So that is the one thing that you should always remember here. So this is one thing about snapshots. Let me just go ahead and quickly go ahead and create a replica for you guys and show you how to create a replica. So we can do it from the master or a snapshot database. I'm going to create the master here and click on read replicas. You can see here under instance actions, now this field is active. Click on create read replica and it is going to ask us some questions. What is going to be the identifier of our read replica? So I'm going to say db master read replica. So I mean, it is always very good to give names which are easy to understand so that we don't have problems later. And it is asking me under which region also. Remember I said that you can push your database to cross region replications also. This is how you push your replication to other regions. So if you want to put it in some other region, go ahead and change that. So for our demo purpose, let us keep it as defaults and go ahead and click on create read replica. And you can see here on your screen, it gives a very nice status for both the master as well as the slave, because the reason why it shows modifying for the master is all the new data that has to be synchronized with the replica also. So there are some additional connections and additional things that needs to be done on the master. So that is why you see the modifying on the master. And you also have the read replica also in the creating state. So it's just going to take some time for this action to complete. So here you can see here it has given a big table with the master and the read replica, the third tab that I spoke about in the beginning. The replication is still happening. Meanwhile, we just can have the master. It shows all the options. If you have multiple replicas that has been created, it will all be listed here and it will show the role of that also. And the reason I was waiting for it, if it is created completely, if it is completed successfully, okay, it is great. It is no, it is not. What you can do is you can promote this replica also as a master. In other words, you can move the database from India to the US by creating a read replica, and once it is successfully created, you can promote the replica also as a master in that region or anywhere that you have created. So in other words, you have copied all the data to another database effectively, and you can use it for any other downstream processing. So that is it I wanted to show for RDS instances as a whole. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat window or comment section anywhere you like. Thank you. So following the GitHub article, what we are going to do here is I'm going to create a collections table name, and the primary key is I'm going to go out and check out. So create a new table with AWS students and create a partition key with this syntax, that is student capital ID as string as the value, and it is going to be, I don't want a short key, so let us leave it as it is and use the default settings only. You don't have to change anything. So in DynamoDB it is very simple. Only these parameters are required. So click on create, and it's almost as simple as this. That's it. You have created your first DynamoDB table. So for inserting records, this is where the collections concepts comes in. Yesterday, if you remember in the previous video, we saw about creating a JSON or a dictionary key with of collections. So I have written some collections here, student records. In other words, there is a student 1, student 2. I'm just creating a local file using these commands. I'm just going to copy paste this into my what shall I say? I'm going to copy paste this into my Linux terminal so that we can connect to our database. And remember, you will need your AWS CLI configured and working for this. I already have my AWS CLI in my local Linux instance, so I can talk to my account on RDS or DynamoDB directly. So I'm going to head over to temp, and I'm going to remove everything there. So if I do ls-lrt, nothing. Oh, still there are some files. Okay, anyway, those are all temp files. A is all the hidden files, so we can ignore that. I'm just going to head over and ensure that I've copied everything and paste it here. So if I do ls-lrt, we can see here there are 4 files that have been created, that is student 1, 2, 3 and 4. All these files will have nothing but student name is John Doe here, age is 21, sex is male, and likewise we have a Jane Doe and old Mike and young Mike. So we have different records created, that is 4 different students. So the next step is to insert these records into our DynamoDB table. So for inserting, again, if you go to the GitHub article that you see there, just have written the commands already. These are all AWS CLI commands. So I'm just going to copy paste it here. And before I paste it, I want to show you that as of now there are no collections in my DynamoDB table. So before pasting it, I'll just go to the DynamoDB table, and if you go to the DynamoDB dashboard first and then ensure that you have selected the table that we just now created, collections we have created, and head over to items section that you see on the right hand side here. If you click on items, as of now you can see here the table is empty and nothing is there in the student ID section. So let us go ahead and do our insert now, paste it. So you can see here slowly one by one record is getting inserted here. There are already 2 records inserted, and it will insert all those 4 records slowly. So once it is inserted, let us go to our DynamoDB dashboard and refresh it and see what happens. So I'm in my dashboard. I'm going to hit the refresh button and see what happens here. You can see here there are 4 records, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 records are created, and if I can expand it like this, you can see all the records that has been created. So young Mike, old Mike, Jane Doe, John Doe, everything is there. And if I want to retrieve a record, so what you can do is you can go to the dashboard again and see this is the command to retrieve, where the student ID is equal to 3 or student record is 3. I'm going to retrieve that. So if we go and see student record 3 means we are talking about old Mike. This is the record we are talking about. We should get the data on our screen if I put it in the command prompt. So let me clear the screen and put this command here, and we should be able to retrieve the record here now. So you can see here I've retrieved the record of old Mike, and you see here the age is been 881. That doesn't sound like right, so we need to update this record so that we can fix it. So what we do is for update record, I've written another collection. We just go back and create another collection and update that item there. Just copy paste those commands. If you want to familiarize with what is the commands and what it does, you just go ahead and read the instructions that is there given in the GitHub article, and I'm just updating it now. See the put item, that means put item is going to update it and get item is going to retrieve it. So now I have fixed it from 881, I have fixed it to 81. Let us go ahead and retrieve the same record again and see whether we are able to retrieve it. So you can see here it has already retrieved that record and 81 is reflecting here. Let us go ahead and see whether that is the case in the online dashboard also. I'm going to hit the refresh button here again, and you can see as of now it still says 881. So let us go ahead and refresh it and see what happens. There you go. It has been updated with the 81 and the sex also is changed from nothing to male now. So this is a very basic example of how to interact with DynamoDB collections, how to update records, how to retrieve records and delete the records. So go ahead and experiment with it and get yourself familiar with your DynamoDB records. You have your metrics, alarms and capacities, and all those things are also available here. So if I click on metrics, you can see here, if I can minimize this a little bit more, you can see here there is a little bar that is the maximum capacity that is provisioned. You can see the red color icon. So it is there, is provisioned is about 5 kbs of write 5 units, and whereas I have used only about very small, close to 0 I have used. Likewise in write capacity is also somewhere here, and I have used it only up to this much. So go ahead and make yourself familiar with the dashboard, and then experiment with the different types of record sets, cross-reference it, do a query join analysis, and see what is the performance with RDS, and choose the best one for your customers. Thank you.